All right, beautiful, beautiful people, wherever you are located, whenever you are located, and you're listening to this. Today, I'm going to talk about um, one of the best feasts there is. So it's a little bit more to it, right? We usually in uh, our program, our scheduled program is talking about the portions of the scripture that are related to the reading according to the Jewish calendar or the Hebrew calendar. But today is a little bit different. Today, I want to talk about um, Sukkot. So, what is Sukkot? When is Sukkot? And how to Sukkot? Those are the three things that I think I want to cover. There might be some more, but we'll see what happens as we go along. And in order for me to kind of, not kind of, but give you reading about what I'm talking about. A read, I mean by a basic understanding, is this. Uh, this journey begins for me hundreds of years before I am born. And if not thousand. And so I come from a history of people that have wandered, walked around, toured, been chased, escaped, and barely survived over hundreds of years, actually over the centuries and millennia, so thousands of years. And it's a story that goes so deep inside my soul that it was a part of me before I ever even knew it was. And it was already working inside of me before I ever understood it. It had something that had been not encrusted, but something that was part of my makeup, of my DNA, my spiritual existence. And, this might sound dramatic, but it isn't. It's very real. And I don't know where you're at again in your journey, but I'll tell you a little bit quickly about mine. It's 1988, and I'm a young man and really trying to figure out, how am I going to live my life and how do I want to express that? And I was in my mid 20s when I heard somebody talking about 88 reasons why Jesus Christ is coming back in 1988. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to save that for another day. All right. So today we have a real cool special. I think it's cool. And I'll tell you why I think it's cool. It's because this is something that's taken me over 20 some years to really figure this out. And when I say me figure it out, I've done Orthodox practice. I've done, Messianic practices. I've done my own, and I've done research and read and try to figure out what's meaningful to me. And I don't know why, way back then when I didn't realize fully that my awareness as being both Jewish and Israel, which are two different things. Okay. Uh, Grew up as a Christian, Sephardic Jew, not knowing there's always a feeling about being weird, different, and not quite fitting in. And so for me, Christmas just didn't make sense. I enjoyed it, but what I didn't like about the celebration is how shallow it felt to me and how incongruent with life it seemed. Even as a little boy, I was just like, why is it that I feel so awkward about it? And in my family, you know, those were bad days because not most of the time. There was a lot of times when the adults would get into fights and knives and guns would come out, So it was just a very strange environment for me, this holiday celebration. And then as I became a young adult and had family, I didn't want to celebrate Christmas like everybody else did, the gifts and I enjoyed looking at the tree. I just didn't enjoy wrapping the tree with all the stuff. And so I'm like, well, I'll just make my own thing. And I would bake a cake for Jesus. And we would celebrate it that way. And instead of just exchanging gifts for no reason, I would tell my kids, look, you're gonna go out and you're gonna go collect grass and or hay, and you're gonna put it in a box, and then you're gonna take that box and you're gonna put it under your bed with a glass of water. And when the three wise men show up, you'll exchange a useless gift because they're travelers, water for them and their camels, and hay for their animals, for gifts that are much more significant. And that was me trying to make significance of a tradition. Okay, so with that in the background, as I began to study and research what are the seven feasts of Israel, which my journey begins in 1988 when, for the first time, it was a book that came out by a Messianic rabbi that said, 88 reasons why Jesus Christ is coming back in 1988 on uh, Rosh Hashanah of 1988. So that started my journey. By the way, in case you didn't know, Jesus never showed up in 1988. He didn't take his church. He didn't do any of that stuff. And the guy that I was mentioning that wrote the book ended up with a ton of money from donations that people gave him. And they all sat on top of a mountain waiting for this particular arrival. Side note, we saw 300 people show up in 1 month to the congregation that I was a part of, and I was part of the ministry, the administration, and 299 of them left the next day after Rosh Hashanah. Okay. Now, the first feast of the seven feasts is Passover, or pronunciation in the Hebrew is Pesach. It's the day of liberation when you finally leave Egypt to go into your journey as a sovereign. And that's very specific because Pesach or Passover is actually inserted into an event. The event is there's been 10 plagues that have lasted more than 15 years. And then finally, this is the breaking of the hand of the will. And the story narrative is that Pharaoh finally gave up his firstborn. Okay. But Egypt means everything and everything that stresses you, because Mitzrayim in the Hebrew means constriction. Okay. And so it is said that Israel was ready to leave and they were fifth. Which you have to go back to when Abraham had his first battle with the 5 kings, and it says that he had 318 men. Well, the word 318, gematria, I believe, equals mercy. And the one person that is mentioned in Abraham was his helper Eleazar, which is the help of God. And now there's a lot of argument. Well, did he have 318 men that were ready? It says his 318 men were fifth. That's the first appearance of that word. And that's all I wanted to bring to coalition in this discussion. So the next time that we see it is when Israel is ready to walk out, and they are now 1/5, or they're fifth. So people say they were only 1/5 of the Israelites left. That means that 4/5 stayed in Egypt. Egypt is a constriction of your mind, all right? Everything that stresses you, the trauma, the drama, and all that other stuff. So you're leaving that, and it says, remember, do this in celebration, and don't allow anyone that is uncircumcised to be among you during your dinner celebration. That's scripture. So if you don't like it, take it up with God. I didn't make that statement. That's God's. He's very clear on when we're supposed to start the day, because it's on the 15th, I'm sorry, on the 14th of the month is when we're supposed to begin the Passover. At when it tells you very clearly, started at this point, during this month, during these conditions, and then you're going to start it on the afternoon of this day, and that's your first day. And you're like, well, what does that mean? That means that on the 14th of that month, you're going to be, which is approximately 3 o'clock, when the shadows are mixing, you're going to start the activity, so that when nighttime comes, you have already prepared, and now you've entered into Pesach. Pesach is an event, a very specific event. And people think that it is the using of the blood, putting it over the doorpost, and staying. Look, those are all pieces of it. But Pesach is an event that happens in a really short period of time that you're supposed to, it's so detailed that it says, when you eat your first meal of Pesach, make sure that you're doing it standing, ready to leave. So that's a lot of details about one particular practice. The next one is blended in, because as you walk out on the following morning, you begin the counting of the Omer. But not only do you begin the counting of the Omer, but you also begin the 7 days of unleavened bread. And there's not a whole lot of detail, right? It's a little confusing in any translation, and even in the Hebrew, because the next one is unleavened bread. For 7 days, you're going to eat bread that doesn't have leaven, and make sure that there's no leaven among you in your houses, because when you left, you didn't have time to rise the dough. But that's not true. They had all night. They knew that they were not going to leave, right? So this is, it's not that it's not a true statement. It's not that it's confusing. It's that it's saying something different. It's telling you, dig into this point and understand what this means. So for 7 days, you're going to eat matzah. Then you go in, and that's the first week of the counting of the Omer. So now I've only covered 2 holidays. Matzah bread after Pesach is 7 days of eating, and that's less descriptive, other than don't have any leaven, and make sure that you're eating unleavened bread for 7 days. So it doesn't say don't eat leaven. It says make sure that you're eating unleavened bread for 7 days. So it's not excluding. So the exclusion comes in as a default and as a analysis of what the scripture is saying. Now, what happens during that period? You take anything that has wheat, that has leaven, that would rise, that could have potentially risen, and you remove it from your possession. Get rid of it. So how do you get rid of it? You can take it all and put it in one corner of your house, or one section that's completely closed off, You put some tape across it, and then you get a bill of sale, and you sell it to somebody that doesn't celebrate Pesach, because that would be incorrect. You cannot possess it. So you say, I will sell you this on a contingent contract that it is yours if you give me $1 or 1 penny, whatever it is that you want to sell it for. You can come and take it anytime you want. It is all yours for 24 hours. You can redeem this claim within the period of time. At the culmination of this period, once you sign it, it returns back to my ownership. And people are like, well, that's so crazy. And why would you want to do that? Because that sounds so, litigious, and, that's so, I've heard all kinds of derogatory terms. It's the activity of taking clear consciousness of what it is that you're doing, and then you are separating yourself on purpose from it. What you're saying is you dig deep into the first introspection, okay, is, do I have leaven in my life? Do I have things that cause me that my pride to rise? That's the 7 days. They're walking in the desert. Again, it's attached to an event. They're walking in the desert for 7 days. All right. So one of the interesting things about eating bread that doesn't have any leaven is that it stops the flow of your bowel movements. It makes things flow a lot slower. Okay. And so they had this journey. Then they come to the edge of the river, and right, the Sea of Reeds, which means Ein Sof, or it's not just the Red Sea, but the end of your path. And then they sing a song on the other side and all that other stuff. So what happens at the end of 7 days? Now you're entering into a full counting of the Omer. So even though it started on Pesach, right? Because you just added that week, you have now, instead of, so it's 7 times 7, which is 49. And then it tells you count the Omer for 7 weeks, and on the next day, and because it's all, it happened on a Shabbat, it would be Sunday. You get to 50 days, right? 7 times 7 is 49, plus 1 is 50. You follow me so far? Is that clear? Now we're into the third one. So these all happen in the spring. Pesach is the beginning of spring and the counting of the year and the months, which is a weird thing because it's an agricultural counting, not a monthly calendar counting. So you have Pesach that begins in the 15th of the month, and then you have to have the equinox in the right place. You have to have enough of a harvest to collect, right? So all these tiny little details, they have to be specific. Then you can start Pesach. You unleavened breads, finish unleavened bread, and now you go into the counting of weeks, which is what it's called. And that is to prepare you. That's where first fruits begin. Okay? When you get to the end of that, now you're into the finish of the harvest. After 50 days, you're like, wait a second. They were 50 days in the desert. What were they going to harvest? You should ask that question, right? Well, to those that are Christian and have knowledge of Christianity, what happened on the day of Pentecost is that moment in which in Israel and in the Jewish format, we believe we get married to the Father. We get married to the Master, to the King. So the 50th day is a wedding celebration. And it's called Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah. So now those are the three, right? I'm sorry, the first three are Pesach, unleavened bread, counting of the Omer. The fourth one is Yom Teruah, the sounding of the trumpets, the marriage. You have three other ones. So counting from this side, from the left, you have three spring feasts, and you have one that stands alone. Then you have three fall feasts, and that one that stood alone, right? So it's like this, right? 3 and 3.
Yeah, it's a menorah pattern.
Exactly. That's exactly what I wanted you to see, that it is
Mhm.
it's a pattern of a menorah, 6 in the beginning, 6 at the end, one that stands alone in the middle. There you go. Just like that. Beautiful. Well done. And so now um, we go through the fall, right, which is harvest time. And at the end of the fall, or the end of the harvest, we begin the some of these feasts, the other two that are supposed to be a pilgrimage, right? And that is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the last one that we're going to be talking about, which is Sukkot. And um, Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah gets us prepared for Yom Kippur, the head of the year, the counting of the season, and that is people are like, okay, that's the prejudgment, preliminary court hearing before the master, so that on the hearing date, your penalties before the judge have been cleared and there is nothing holding against you. In people, well, so for those of you that miss what I'm saying, is the feast, and they're all called feast, even though one of them we're going to fast for 24 hours, which is Yom Kippur. Understand that I'm giving you my explanation of them rather than what is traditionally observed. Rosh Hashanah is known as the head of the year. That is not a biblical language. And but we'll just move with it because that's the day that you decide to show up. And I'm going to show this book for those of you that don't know it. Like, think about having a very special book in which only, it's a ledger. You bring your ledger in front of the court and you say, yep, I'm guilty as charged. I accept your judgment for the value of my life. A for V, except for value. And so, and it's an acknowledgement. The calendar gets reset and we begin a new counting. So we're today, or now we're in the counting of the 5,785th year of creation. I'm not going to get into all of that, but there's a lot more story behind this. Is not creation, but recreation. There was 7 creations before, and now we're in the eighth creation. But of the counting, it's 5,785th years from the last recreation. Okay, so now we're here, and we present ourselves so that the judgment may be in your favor. And um, it escapes my mind. So if you could, when you get a moment, pull up what the biblical name for Rosh Hashanah is. And it is, okay, if it comes to me, I'll mention it, but let's just keep moving with it. 10 days later, we go into Yom Kippur. So the number 10 is judgment. And so now you're, so it sounds backwards. No, but if you look at the court's systems today, you have a preliminary hearing before the actual hearing. So Rosh Hashanah is the preliminary hearing in which you present yourself and say, guilty as charged, give me mercy, Father, da 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 da. And these celebrations, people would take their tithe and use it to show up for to say, you know what, I was a stranger among strangers, and my father was one Aramean, and now I bring these fruits before you, um, so on and so forth. Let me know when once you found it, so we could just add it in there.
Yeah, it says Rosh. Rosh is head, Ha is the, and Shana is year. So Rosh Hashanah commemorates the creation of the world and the creation of Adam and Eve. It also marks the beginning of the days of awe, a 10-day period of reflection and repentance that leads up to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. On Rosh Hashanah, people celebrate by renewing their relationship with God and renewing His sovereignty over time and space. This is done by blowing the shofar, a ram's horn trumpet. A common greeting on Rosh Hashanah is Shana Tova Umtuka, which means may you have a good and sweet new year. Um, just on the previous search that I did while you were
Yeah,
talking, you said you had mentioned the gematria of mercy, Rahamim,
Raham.
is
Yes,
298, which is exactly the same of womb and blood, 1,369. I don't know how 298 is the same as 1,369, but it says um, Raham, Vadam, womb and blood is 37 squared, where 37 is the gematria of Yechidah, the highest level of soul that one can attain by the forgiveness of sin on Yom Kippur. So the Yom Kippur, I know that's not the same as Sukkot, but the forgiveness of sin and the starting over, the ending of the year, and the just what I was, it's interesting also yesterday, I came across something where when Jacob was wrestling with the angel of the angel of the Lord asked him, "What is your name?" Or he says, "Let me go." You know, God says, "Let me go." And Jacob's like, "No, give me a blessing." And the Lord says, "Well, what is your name?" Like, that's a weird response. He says, "Jacob." The only other time someone had asked him his name was when Jacob had lied to Abraham. Abraham said, um, Jacob had walked in. He said, "Father, are you here?" Abraham said, "I am here, my son. Who is it?"
Isaac.
And okay, it was Isaac. I'm
Isaac is
sorry,
his
not
father,
Jacob.
right?
Got you. And he said, Esau. And but Jacob means to deceive. So it was Jacob. So it wasn't father, it was grandfather. But um the only other time in Torah that someone had asked Jacob his name, he lied. And when he asked for this blessing from the Lord asked him his name, and it shows that he repented. My name is Jacob. I am claiming that which is mine. I'm releasing that which is not mine. I acknowledge that I stole. It was wrong. I was the deceiver. And as soon as he admits that he was the deceiver, because that's what Jacob means, then his name was changed.
So really powerful. Thank you for that interjection of all those pieces. I want to spend a little bit of time,
Sure, sure.
right? Because it's really juicy. Then we can come back on the counting of the seven feasts. So
Yes.
we have basically put a pin on the fourth uh, feast, and we're moving into the fifth one. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the reason why the correlation in between 298, the gematria of the word is in relationship to the womb is because,
Womb and blood.
yes, the womb represents a place of mercy and protection from the elements of the world, okay? And and so throughout all of this, not only that, but the word used to describe not just the womb, but in Hebrew, the word to describe a woman that is pregnant is that she is mountaining. And there's some correlation here. So why do we say that? In Spanish, when a woman is pregnant, we say she is going to give light or she's of light. We don't use the word pregnant. We do in a more, common way, but in the traditional way, we would say, oh, she's of light. Oh, do you know? We
Mm.
wouldn't say, so and so is pregnant. We would say, do you know that she's of light or she's going to give light? Oh my God, I didn't know. Wow, how cool is that? So in why is that important? Because science has already proven to us that that's exactly what happens at the moment of conception. There's a spark of light. And so the word mountaining in Hebrew has a relationship to, it has a direct connection to the word to have mercy, to have compassion. So the womb is a place of protection, and as she is mountaining, she's providing, like, think of your arms, right? Protecting over the child in this world that's so chaotic. That's where those pieces connect.
Hmm. And Rahamim, if Raham is the womb, Rahamim is just many wombs. Mercy is plural mercy. It's plural, like many protections, many spoiling.
Right, right. And which is what people do with children, right? And the word
Hmm.
chacham, it means, so with a slight different vowel pronunciation, it means one who is much wise, or the
Hmm.
husband of the
Mm.
of Torah. He's the one that speaks with the because he has studied and knows. So in order to talk about somebody who's very wise and smart, chachamim, it means in Hebrew, it means the one who's got all the wombs is actually a man who's full of wisdom. He's a chacham. Oh, wow, he's a chachamim. Oh, that he's really, really smart, really wise, really endowed with the scripture. Um, so these, hopefully, this is making sense to some people. So that's why this is important, right? And so Abraham, it's the word the gematria that equals 318 is what I was making reference to, right? Um, and so if it's not mercy, whatever it is, I believe it's either mercy or sustenance, which is another form of thinking of mercy, right? Because somebody's providing sustenance to you.
Sure.
Bottom line is he had 318 men. Scripture says he was fifth. They were all fifth, ready for war. That word appears again in Pesach. That was my point in connecting these pieces together. And then when we get into the fifth, which is Rosh Hashanah, and the words Rosh Hashanah are non-biblical. So there's a language being used that may not mean a whole lot, right? Is an idiomatic uh, custom, and that is something that's from Torah. We say it's Toraita, it's in Torah. Something that is not in Torah, but is part of the celebrations and the customs of Israel, we say it's rabbinical, making the differentiation into I have exactly the point. So Rosh Hashanah is rabbinical, but the actual day is Toraita, and it has a Torah name. That's what I was asking you to see if you could find it, because I couldn't remember, but it is Yom Teruah, the day of the blowing of trumpet. And what we do is we blow 199, right, which is a multiple of three, and then we blow one more on that day. And so it's three different types. And the idea here is to hear why is it that's combined with that's the day in which, all of creation comes before God to arrange things, is because Adam, the first creature, which was both male and female united in one, and they didn't have skin. So you can't claim that, you're male and female inside one. That's those things don't come together, all right? That's just modern day narrative. The first blowing of a shofar was when creative energy took a clump of clay and blew into it. The Adam becomes the first shofar. So now we have arrived to the fifth level of dimensional understanding of introspection and spirituality. And we blow 99 times from earth to heaven, bringing heaven down, creation into um, into judgment. And so people are like, oh, that sounds so. No, we want severe judgment, not severe judgment in the sense of total destruction, but severe judgment is give me everything that there is in terms of
Severe
blessing, whatever it
correction.
is, just bring it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we add an extra one as a way of saying, and to you, you are the only one. So
Mm.
do the work
Or
of the three
the
crowns.
attitude, the attitude of I can take one more.
Yes, yes, exactly. And so that's the beauty of Yom Teruah. And so you're like, oh, I
Mm.
thought that Pentecost was a one where yes, because we're celebrating when Torah was given to us for the first time, it says this. Listen carefully. For you saw and heard the voice, but saw no you saw nothing, right? Meaning, well, how can I see and hear? Well, because you saw the effects, you didn't see me, is what he was saying. And that's the day. Um, that's a tremendous study. The point is that he took the mountain and lifted it up, and they were in. All of Israel was inside the mountain that couldn't be touched, and that's where Moses was for 80 days, 40 days the first time, and so on and so forth. So that's the wedding. That's you feel the vibration, and the flames were already available because you saw the mountain on fire, and it wasn't completely consumed like Moses experienced at a maximum level. That's why Pentecost in the New Testament has a direct connection to when Torah is given. Torah wasn't given because he was not handed a printout of a book. He was
Mhm.
handed instructions, and all of Israel heard the first and the second saying.
Mm.
Then they were like, hey, man, that's too much for me. That's too much intensity. You go get the rest of the information. And Moses had to listen to the rest.
Mm.
Vibrationally, they receive. What happens when you receive vibrationally? Your whole DNA
You
changes.
become.
You become, boom. They became Torah.
Mm.
Huh. So they
They
were,
felt like they mentioned that they were going to die if they had heard any more. They felt like they would become so much that they were not. And there is a prayer, to ask God to increase Himself, to less of me and more of you.
yeah,
And they they were finally confronted with the reality, the heaviness of that request. And they said, if
can't
there's
handle.
less of me and more of you, I'm not going to exist for a third saying.
Boom.
There's going to be so much of you that I'm going to cease to exist. And I'm scared. It is a good thing. However, you're not going to have any people if we're all so much like you that we cease to exist because we are so at fault. We are so far from God that we need to get closer. We need to have more of ourselves in that space so that when you get rid of all the rest, I don't go with it. You're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
My mind has gone in 10 different directions all at once
I
to
could
try to,
tell with the way you were like preach.
yes, the visions and all this other stuff. Look, to be able to describe to you what those words that you just use, it's not easy and trying not to go off in too many of those places. But understand that it was the Father's desire to give everything. And this is the need of a man when he feels like he's at that moment of ejaculation. He's like, I can't contain it no more. In all his whole body, his whole essence, he's like, ah, ah, an incredible explosion. He's like, I have to hold back. That's mercy. That's consideration. And they're on the other hand saying, give me all you have. I want it. That's what a woman wants. But then she's like, ooh, well, I can't handle that. I can't take all 10. And and so all these imageries should just start to elaborate inside your own brain to be able to understand that the giver wants to give everything, the receiver wants to receive everything, and they come to the realization that that may not be such a good thing because one of us is going to disappear. And it is fear that stops you from receiving, right? And we're eventually going to talk more about what it is to receive because that's in Sukkot. And here's another piece that's so powerful. On that moment, in the Hebrew language, it says, and death is no more. Hmm. When you hear, you become, meaning you've become so much like the Father that you're no longer perishable. So all of Israel had become maybe age 33. No pain, no nothing. There was no pain and gain. All of it was all done and restored. But because of fear, they had to go backwards and they did the so-called sin of fear was they created a mechanical device and put the essence of their power into a golden calf that could act like a computer that could reason and think, but it was a golden calf. It actually could talk and it was intuitive and it could speak to the people. And that's the problem. So they took their essence and they gave it up by not understanding what they had. Isn't that what happened in the Garden of Eden? They took their essence and they gave it up because they didn't understand their essence. So they were like, yeah, I guess you're right. We're being cheated about the tree of life. All
Yeah.
right. So we get to the fifth, which is the sounding the trumpet. Adam was the first trumpet blown. And we do this as a way of sending the blessings back into heaven so that, you know what, we want to receive everything that you have. That's Rosh Hashanah. Now, it's all introspective. You're supposed to listen to the sound on that day. What's important is to listen to the sound. It's not to blow it. And the person that's blowing it should have kavanah. And the Hebrew means all the right intention. And so every blast of the shofar, it's got to be done with the intention. And everybody should close their eyes and just listen and let the vibration come into you and absorb it and let that vibration flow through your whole body so that you can truly accept the experience of the vibration. That's it. That's the command. Go ahead.
There are two things that come to mind with that. I was about to mention one, but now there are two. The first is we go to we go to concerts not so that
That's
because
good.
we just like the music and we can hear it. It's not just to hear, it's to feel. It's because it's so much louder and we're there for the atmosphere and we're there to participate. And to participate with music, anyone who's had the joy of singing along with their favorite music, they become the music because you are creating it at the same time you hear it. So for those who are listening to the trumpets, to maximize that, match it, sing the same note. Now, the
Look,
second thing is,
man.
the second thing is, to me, it was just funny that we call the nose the horn because the you had mentioned that the breath of life that we
Yes.
became the trumpet, like Adam was the trumpet because we were blown into. And it says that that was in the nostrils, not in the mouth, specifically the nostrils. And the nostrils, the nose is considered the horn. That to me was just funny. It's not even like a deep, oh, that changed my life. But still, it's funny to me that we call the nose the horn.
Look, man, it's so beautiful, and this is what a lot of people. I am inviting you to learn Hebrew for yourself because every word that comes out of this guy's mouth, and because we've done this exchange, and because we spent time learning Kabbalah and Hebrew together, look, it sends a million different connections. It sends me into all these different places that are so deep. He mentions the nose. According to Kabbalah, to the teachings of the Kabbalist, the nose or the sense of smell was the only one thing that was not taken away from us at the fall. All other senses have been dismantled, but the nose, the smell, sense of smell is still intact. And that's why, you know, the smell is so powerful because it sends you to somewhere real quick, right? It has a direct connection to your brain. And
It's
so
got the most real estate
yeah, and
by
Spanish,
far.
yes.
It's been tested with like MRIs and stuff that the sense of smell I think has about 50% of the total real estate of all the senses put together.
Yeah,
The nose is about half
yeah,
of everything because it carries a lot of weight. And I had just yesterday watched a video on how the word to be inspired. To inspire is to breathe in.
yep,
And speedo, spiro is air. And to expire, when we say, oh, it's expired, it doesn't just mean it got old. It means it had its last breath.
correct.
And the inspiration, just the fact that, like what you had mentioned, that the nose was the only sense that wasn't diluted, means that it might very well be um, the most profound because outside of the spirit, we can do nothing. And there was a lecture by Charles, I think it's Charles Spurgeon, and he said, I would much rather be blind and still be able to walk by faith than to have my own eyes and be led astray by only following what I can see.
That's powerful.
So, yeah.
That's
And
powerful.
just the to remind us that if we had if we had any sense, most of the people that I've spoken to when asked the, oh, what if question, what if you had to keep only one of your senses, which one would you keep? They usually say their hearing or their vision. And according to that, spiritually, the nose is the most important because without it we can't be inspired. The
Correct.
spirit is by far the most important.
100%, 100%. And, some research has already been done with specifically with mushrooms. and you can put two electrodes on a mushroom and pick up the noise that they're making in their communication, and it sounds like music. And so everything has vibration, but we have lost our capacity to hear correctly. And and so when we speak, we are sending sounds of music that we can no longer pick up. And when we so it's there's this whole world of vibration that we are missing, but apparently not that's think about it. 50% of all the senses are dedicated just for the nose, and there's a reason. And one other thing that I want to share about that, which is a really nice coincidence, is that the word for nose, if you were to read it in Spanish, no sé, means I don't know nothing. So you lose your sense of smell and you know nothing. And so this is the fifth celebration, right? The day of the blowing of the trumpet, and you're supposed to, the command is to listen, not to blow, not to talk, not to see, to listen. In other words, to feel the vibration in
And
you.
if the trumpet represents the inspiration, the breathing in, then to being told to blow into the trumpet is one thing, but being told to listen to the trumpet is to receive the inspired breath of God
Yeah,
and the sound that it makes, because sound is creative. And then when we sing with it, that's like, ooh, that's
correct.
dangerous.
It is dangerous, right? It is these are the layers of depths that when you observe and practice all of these seven feasts, and I want you to know that there's an eighth one that is not counted in the seven of the seven feasts of Israel that the Bible mentions. These are the seven feasts of Israel that you're going to keep forever as my memorial. There's the eighth one, and we're going to get to that at the end when we talk about the seventh one. Okay, so moving on to number six is the Day of Atonement. And people think it's a time to suffer and to be all somber and feel sorry for yourself and please have mercy on us. No, it's the day of salvation. Okay, Hoshana Rabbah is a day of joy. And what you do is you make a commitment to stop eating and drinking and not take care of the body so that it's all about your spirit and your soul relationship. The fasting is not done as a punishment or as a subjugation of the body. It's done because I don't want to talk to the body and I don't want to be in synchronicity with my flesh. I want to be complete. After bring me all the severe judgment, all the maximum of it, so that I can be completely whole and ready to receive. And what people think
Mhm.
is it's all about don't eat so that you can just stuff your mouth on the other side 24 hours later,
Yeah,
which is in itself a sin.
right.
And I'm telling you, so you can see how if we start learning how to observe them in the right way, then they become significant and they become fulfilling to us.
Mhm.
And now comes the last one. 7 days of seven visitors that come to a place, and this one is called Sukkot, also known as booths. For you, make yourself, make for yourselves booths that you may dwell in them for 7 days, is what it tells you. But now it's called Sukkot, and you're like, well, what does that mean? The word is chach. Think of a screen, that which you can see through, but it's obstructed. It's a form of using a fence. And I'm not going to go into all the details of the how it's all done, but let me tell you what it means to celebrate it nowadays. We take and we build a specific, very specific building that's in the shape of three walls that should be solid with one wall that is not. Because think of them as a bunch of Legos like this that you can connect one to another. So you would make a long string of them and basically all the way around, and they would connect at the end. Because Sukkot is going to bring the Messianic era. That's what we're celebrating. Go ahead.
There was a there was a video that I had seen on YouTube. I'm going to do my best to pull it up so that I have the name of the channel available so that when I say it I can actually link it to you guys. But this video was talking about the function of the letter chet. Rabbi Alon Anava looked
Yeah,
at what's going on, the
yeah.
secret of the letters entering the spiritual final war. He's talking about the letter chet and that the reason that it is shaped the way that it is two walls and a roof, but no floor.
Think of it
And
as
that
a you.
het,
Yeah.
like a square U or the Greek letter pi.
Yes.
So it has two walls representing that you can't go left or right and you can't crawl out of the top.
Yep.
And it has no floor
Yep.
to symbolize sabotage. It is without foundation. So the it does there was a point that said that it's like a tent, but a tent that's kind of trapped because the bait itself is the house or the tent, and it's supposed to represent the tent when you open the front flap. It has the bottom, it has a nice sturdy foundation, and it has the side and the top because the opening of the tent has been pitched open and like pinned in one corner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And versus the het, which has to do with not just it's the het is not just negative, nothing is, but it's the it's the eighth letter. It represents the number eight, eight being going above and beyond what is natural. Sometimes that's a negative thing, sometimes that's a positive thing. Um, I believe eight is also the number of gold or wealth. Gold was mentioned eight times in Genesis, and it's it's to allow the expansion of humanity through economic flourishing into a world that is beyond just agriculture, just what the earth can provide by seven. So, but the het, I think of that every time I hear of the something like the sukkah, where there are walls and there's a roof, that there's a part of me that sees the parallel between the sukkah and the bait, relating it to the story of Abraham and how the father Abraham was the father of many or the exalted father before and after his or after and before his name change, but either way, father Av is the tent or is the image of the father God in the house. And like you had mentioned, Aleph is in Phoenician Hebrew, the Aleph was a ram or a ox. And if the ox represents the work that is done, then Aleph Bet, meaning father together, is the one who animates the house and who keeps it running and who keeps it moving. Abraham was the one who moved his tent. He literally animated his house and kept it on the side of the road so that he could serve people. And the sukkah, the sukkot, are the imitation of that so that we can sing with the trumpets, so to speak. We can we can mimic God by being more like him and being more like the father in the house by making a house and being acting like the father by being more giving. But there's a part of me that knows that when if the both the bait and the het are symbols of establishments, that there is some kind of I can't put my finger on exactly what the distinction is, but there is some kind of critical attitude about building the tent and being giving that if you don't do it right, it will sabotage you. And that reminds me of was it, I think it was Numbers or it was early in Deuteronomy where God said to the teachers, it was Shoftim, it was Parashat Shoftim, where
Yeah.
God said, I I'm going to give you guys blessings and curses, okay? But for you teachers, for you judges and the police, you guys are in charge of other people, and I'm going to judge you 10 times as hard. So if you are wrong, if you do not follow what I command of you, you are going to be held 10 times as accountable, and I am
Yep.
not going to go easy on you. And that acting as the father is becoming shoftim also, in that it's like there is a sense of accountability. It's not just, I want to build this thing and I want to invite people over and serve them. It is I am obligated to be the best teacher that I can and to act as these people's adopted father for the time that they are here. Because if I fall short, this sukkah is a chet, not a bait.
Really incredibly deep analysis here of what you just said. So Sukkot takes Abraham. Forget everything else. Sukkot is us being like Abraham. Abraham would put his tent, and we covered this in the other teachings of our podcast. He would put it in the middle of a crossroad, and then he would open all the flaps so that people would have to come in and under his authority inside his tent. And then he would serve them, even though he was wealthy and rich. And then he would keep them there. And then he would find a way to have a discussion, to talk to them, to wake them up and to wake up their mind and say, hey, I have something for you to introspect on. I hope that I can inspire you to go much deeper into this conversation when you leave my tent. Abraham had to go through 10 tests, like the 10 plagues of Israel, like the 10 judgments from the 10 days from one um, feast to the other. Okay. So that then you can enter into the time of Sukkot. And so what Sukkot is, the celebration is you build a temporary building that it's open to the air, and that's why the word schach is there. It has to be, you have to be able to see through so you can count and see the stars. And if you're in the Midwest, that is not a fun thing to do because in this year it falls in October. And guess what? We were building it in 40-degree weather, and it wasn't a whole lot of fun because you're not supposed to build it until after Yom Kippur. Okay? Yes. So you got to get busy and you got to get the stuff done. You got 10 days to get it done so that it's, so that it's ready for the next celebration. And in that celebration, we're going to bring our fine china, we're going to bring our silver and our gold, and we're going to decorate the inside with all the beauty that you have in your house. And you want to make sure that your women who are the ones that are constantly serving the men are the ones being serviced during these 8 days, that they are in the pleasure. So the kids and the men and the boys are the ones taking care of doing the dishes and the food preparation and all
Mm.
this other stuff. And mama gets to enjoy her time.
Yeah, that's the image of the father. The father
Yes.
actually gets to be the giving one, and the that that brings to my mind that the immeasurable bliss of Shabbat is only something we can live by when we decide to live in grace and accept abundance and receive instead of being only serving out of obligation.
And this is what
And
Sukkot is so powerful because in
Mhm.
Sukkot, you're supposed to do this out of abundance and you invite a new stranger every day of the week. We call them Ishpusim, which means strangers, or not really, but visitors. It means visitors, not strangers. But you want to invite somebody that, so think of it. You're um, of Jewish descent, you're of the kind of people that you're of Israeli desire, you want to be Israel. And I'm not covering what that means now, but just listen to what I'm saying. Not that you want to be Israeli, but you want to be from the name, the household of Israel. Like he was saying earlier, yeah, my name is Jacob, I'm a deceiver. No, I'm Israel. What is Israel? One who wrestles with God and man and overcomes. You like Abraham, he was known as Ibrit because it means he crossed over. He crossed over from being selfish minded to being other people minded. That's the mean to cross over. So during Sukkot, you're celebrating. I connect to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob called himself that he was the son of Abraham, even though that was his grandfather. So you didn't say it incorrectly. It's just that's the way the scripture says of Jacob. Okay. But his real biological father was Isaac. And Isaac is abundance because Isaac didn't have to work for anything. His father gave him all the inheritance. This is so Sukkot takes all the other six and it wraps it into one beautiful moment. And then it's aiming towards the eighth day. And I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But Sukkot is the most favorite one because you bring all this stuff into a temporary building and then you invite people and you ask them that they don't bring nothing but themselves to come and be a part of it. And then when they leave on the first day, is the first visitor is Abraham, the second is Isaac, the third is Jacob, the the fourth is Moses. The fifth is Aaron. The sixth is Joseph. And the last one is King David. That's right. So you can, the progression of all the patriarchs. Yes, I'm a patriarch and I believe in patriarchy. And I'm telling you what, patriarchy is beautiful when you understand how it's supposed to function. It is to be the blessing, the protection, and that which is gives from abundance. And so you invite the people. And like, for example, I invite you and you come in to my sukkah on day one, and I'm going to say, may all the blessings of our father Abraham be upon you, your life, and your family, and everything that's so that you live in abundance, in righteousness, that even in your old age you are fruitful like Abraham was, and like Sarah, whose abundance was all in one child, but the heritage that they left was beyond their life for thousands of generations. And may all of this happen to you, not sometime in the future, but today. And
Mhm.
that's the blessing that you give to that first visitor. Go ahead.
So as you were saying, I I am a patriarch. I am for the patriarchy. It is a good thing when you understand how it functions.
Yes.
I I heard in my head all the people, all the keyboards clacking of the angry people that are like, patriarchy is disgusting. Or or in a better case, all the people that say, yes, patriarchy can be a good thing if you are a real man.
Yes.
However, this is what came to my mind. The patriarch is a father and is a king. As much as I want to agree and say that patriarchy can be a good thing if you are a real man, I will take that one step further. And if you are a real man, you are still not qualified to be a patriarch. You have to be a real father.
You have to be a divine masculine to be patriarch.
Yeah. Yes. And father, not all men are fit to be fathers. Even if you are a real man, you may or may not be fit to be a real father. A real father is the image of God. That is something that is you've become more like Adam, Kadmon. You've become more like the man. And because there are fewer great fathers than there are great men, that means that being a great father, being a true patriarch, is something that is of an even higher caliber and higher concentration and greater radiance and higher responsibility than being a great man. So for the people who say patriarchy would be a really good thing if there were more real men, I agree with your sentiment, but I would take it a step further. Oh, you're muted. I don't hear you.
Testing one,
There
two,
you are.
three. Now,
Yeah.
okay. Patriarchy is the highest level that a man can attain on this earth. That's the highest level because when you are now the tree of life. So, you connect and you communicate with divinity and you're one within that context of divinity. And you can pass blessings to generations to come. Patriarchy, Abraham was a father, a foster father, an adoptive father. That's the standard. It's not just to engender children and give to your own, but to give to such a point when he won the war against the five kings, they were like, hey man, take whatever you want. Just don't want any. If my men want some, give them whatever it is that you thought I deserve. Give it to them. See, that's patriarchy.
That was so when I had heard that from Myron Golden, the way that he explained it was he had gone to war against these other five kingdoms, and the enemies of those five kingdoms that he had destroyed wanted to pay him to thank him
That's
as
correct.
kind of a bounty. Like, hey, we were having such a hard time getting rid of these guys, but we really want to thank you and we want to serve you and pay you for all the good you've done for us by taking these guys out. And he's like, I didn't do it for you. And I'm not going to let you even dare to think that I
Correct.
did it because I would get paid,
As a matter of
especially
fact,
not by you.
exactly. As a matter of fact, he said, I will not take it lest you say Abraham was increased by you. Not going to happen.
Yep, exactly. He's like, I don't need your money. I don't, not only do I not need your money, but I don't want you to ever think that exactly that I was better because you gave me your filthy money.
That I benefited because of
Yeah.
you, of your position, that you were in a bad position, and somehow I took advantage.
Yeah. Keep your dirty
He
money.
was like, no, man, that's not going to happen. Not today, not tomorrow. And
Yep.
so, again, we discussed quite a bit about him in Lech Lecha. It's my favorite, and I love this individual Abraham because he is truly the quintessential man. He is the Renaissance man. He is all the man that you could ever want to be or study. And don't think that there's not enough information about him because there's so much of what he's done and did. In the records are clear that if you ever wanted to aspire and have a role model, this is the man that you want to have as a role model, as a hero. Yes, a patriarch, a true patriarch.
You had
So
even
now
mentioned that his with as the analog between each of the patriarchs or each of the primary figures that Abraham, the analog is the sphere of Chesed, of giving, just raw givingness.
Okay, keep going.
Just I had seen that in my notes actually. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Okay, go ahead and interrupt me whenever you find it. So,
Sure.
see, you have to be like Abraham. Not only that, but because it's a temporary building, the walls are considered to be as anointed and holy as when they were at the mountain. So it becomes a temporary, for 8 days, it becomes like the tabernacle that was in the desert or in the wilderness. And the walls have that kind of power because you are blessing other people and that vibration. Because remember, the outside is supposed to look ugly in that temple, in the tabernacle in the desert, but the inside was completely covered and beautiful and with gold and embroidery and all this other stuff. That's you. You can look at me, you can look at anybody and say, man, brother, you is ugly. Okay. But the reality is, if you were to see the soul of who I am, it is the most incredible, magnificent, beautiful thing because it is made in the image of the Most High. That's
Mhm.
gold.
Yep.
That's the
So
highest
I
level of
got
it.
it.
Go ahead.
Hesed is Abraham, Geburah is Isaac, Tiferet is Jacob or
Mhm.
Israel. Israel is the image of the sun that shines light on the rest of the world.
That is
But
why
because, go ahead.
he said, Israel is my firstborn.
Yes.
Go ahead, Tiferet.
Mm. So, and it's funny because he wasn't his anything born. It was his. Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, you're right. When you said Israel, I thought of Isaac because they both start with IS. But just that, the Hesed to Abraham, Geburah to Isaac, Tiferet to Jacob. That that captures the essence of what I'm trying to get at. Because there would be no Tiferet if for those of you who have some kind of illustration of the tree of life to follow, um, let's see if I can also present this one for those of you watching the video real quick. Got that laid out. So Tiferet is the one in the center pillar, the center of the center pillar. It is the only one connected to the other nine spheres. And because it is in the middle pillar, it represents balance. It represents taking from the radical left hand of severity and the radical right hand of generosity. The Spartan left hand and the Santa Claus right hand. And the middle pillar would have no function if it wasn't distilling and and purifying and beautifying the highest function of what both the consolidated left hand and right hand could serve. But it's not just the middle pillar taking a Venn diagram overlap of what does the right hand want? What does the left hand want? And just give them what they both want in the middle. No, no, no. The middle pillar, especially specifically Tiferet, is is radiance. Radiance and radiance is a distillation of the will of God. It is when you have connected with the cosmos, the kingdom, that heaven, really, the ultimate grand order, the will, and you've plugged into it, and through that, it empowers you to distill the best of both worlds and then magnify it. So the 1 plus 1 is not 2, it is 11. And the point I'm getting at is that there would be no Tiferet, there would be no higher cause or forward movement in the kingdom or spreading of the viral, wonderful capital O order of the kingdom if Tiferet did not have two steps before it. This is why Israel was the third generation or the second after Abraham, because Tiferet would be nothing if it weren't for the structure of Geburah, strength, and the abundance of Chesed or grace. And grace is undeserved mercy. Grace is, you don't need this, you don't deserve it, and that's actually why I'm giving it to you. Because you have fallen short, because you don't deserve it, you don't deserve to be here. It's honestly just for free because I feel like it. And that was what Abraham was the embodiment of. There would be no Israel if there weren't the expansive, just insanely abundant presence of Abraham. Abraham was the masculine primary force that then was channeled through the structure of Geburah, Isaac, or Yitzchak, I laugh, and then the force of Abraham's givingness in the belly laugh of his son, which then gave birth to the balance between them and the brilliance that is the whole nation of Israel in its seed form.
I love
That
it.
contains the fruitfulness, the yielded fruit of Abraham, and the profound root system of that. Actually, wow, that's crazy. That's synchronistic.
Keep going.
Geburah is the rooted consciousness. That's what it was called. I had no idea. I've been taking these notes, and of the 32 paths of wisdom, um, that's wow. I'm blown away right now. I had just said the root system of Geburah and of Isaac, and I look down and I read the word rooted on
So
Geburah.
yeah, show it again to the people. See, here's
Sure.
the thing. So I want you to know that the center one. So if you come from the bottom up, if you're looking at this diagram, it's in the center pillar is the first, the second, the third one is the one we're discussing right now, right?
Hmm.
And so that's the known as the offspring or the product. And then the one to the up left, up right are the originators or the ones that give of themselves to create the other one that's in the middle. And that one is the one that's connected to all things. So just to this, what you're looking at here is the tree of life. And so
Hmm.
I just wanted to give you a little bit of a context of what we're discussing when we say these names of Gevurah, Tiferet, and what do we have on the right pillar?
Chesed.
Not Chokhmah, it's
Chesed.
Hesed, love, Abraham, okay? So Chokhmah is the upper one at the highest level. And Binah on the other side, on the left side. The left side is a female, the right side is a male. The center is called the concentration or the offspring. And the center cannot stand if it doesn't have support on both sides. But
Hmm.
it has to come from somewhere. So it comes from the combination of the mother and the father, the joining together with much more depth, because that's why our children are a much higher version of ourselves. They are better version of us.
Yeah, they're not just the overlap of mom plus dad.
And it's a lie from hell for a woman to say, my body, my choice. That is not your choice. That is a human being. You don't have any right over that sovereign existence. Nobody has. You're my
Yeah.
kid. No, I'm not your kid. I chose to come through this family. And there's a big difference in the way you think of it because that's a totally different entity. So now that we've covered all of that, let's see if we can finish off with the sukkah. And so every day of to 7 days, you're inviting people and you're feeding them and you're sharing with them. You're not trying to tell them the story and the boohoo story of how you were a slave and how you were poor and sleeping in a temporary building. You're telling the beautiful story how you have crossed over and you are in full abundance. That's what this is about. They get to be Israel walking in the desert because they show up without anything and they get to be fed and they haven't paid for anything. You don't accept gifts from them. You're the gift giver this time. That's what's important about this festivity. You become God, the gift giver. Come to my place. Where's your place? Anywhere you want me to be. Yeah, in a temporary building. Yeah, that's it. Where you can see, look at the skies. That's it. That's who I am. That's where God is. I exist in the space in between. Right? In now, but it's 8 days. You're like, well, wait a second. I thought you said it was only seven feasts. Yes, there's 7 feet, and the last one is the joy of receiving Torah, Simchat Torah. And in that day, there's a couple things that happen in there. We'll take something called a lulav in a etrog. An etrog is a fruit that specifically grows near or originates from near Iraq right in that Iranian area where the it is believed that the actual Garden of Eden was. The Bible calls it, because it's in there, and all these 4 species are in there, it calls it the fruit from the precious tree, referencing the tree of life that we were just displaying for you. You are the fruit from the precious tree because you are the fruit when you become a true patriarch.
Be
Okay?
fruitful and multiply
Yes.
was the first command.
So what's interesting about this particular fruit is not a lemon and it's not a lime. It is yellow, but it's an etrog. The etrog is very thick skinned. It's almost 2/3 skin and just 1/3 fruit. And it smells good and it's beautiful, and it only is edible when the outside is rotten or just falling apart. As you do, like the velveteen rabbit, those of you that know that story, you become real when you are no longer as pretty and pristine, when your hair begins to fall off and you're tethered and your threads are coming apart, then you become real to the child. That's the velveteen. And so that's what the fruit represents. As you've walked through life, then you become fruitful and you multiply and you give from the juices of your life. The etrog, that's the etrog. The lulav is 3 different. One that's willow, one that's the palm leaves, and then the other one I can't remember, but one is very smelly and very uh, like abundant, but it doesn't provide fruit. One is very tall and it grows strong, and you have to work really hard to get its fruit. And then the other one is um, uh, so of the 3, one grows fast and very, so the bottom line is the tall one with coconut is representing that some people are very proud, but when you try to talk to them, you have to work through all their language and everything else because they want to tell about themselves before they actually give you something worth of fruit, right? Other people do the work and they're hard workers and do everything, but there's no substance to them. Okay, so you don't want to be out of balance in one of those two. Some people are very good for, you can take the wood, you might even be able to smell some of their work, but they're lacking fruit. So you got to have all 4 of them together, come together. You must be all 4. And then at the end, you take the etrog to one side and you beat the lulav on the ground on the 8th day when you're receiving the joy of Torah, and you beat all the things that fall off the lulav. meaning I am shaking away all the negativity from me and I'm starting a new year, a new season on the eighth day. The eighth day is the Messiah, is the messianic era. When you take the eighth and you turn it outside, it becomes the symbol of infinity. And so you get to heal yourself and be reborn on this on the eighth day. And I suggest that you stay up all night praying and meditating on what your life is going to be. And I'm going to turn it over to Destin so that he can give you these incredible details on the suggestion on how to properly celebrate the transition from the seventh day of being a patriarch to the eighth day where abundance exists forever. And when you can, all the judgment is past, all the waiting on your daddy's past. Now you get to walk in the fullness of your essence and your expression. Eighth day is the day to receive because you, like in the first day, you become what you hear. You are now Torah on earth. You got it, brother. This is all you.
Oh, I was unmuted the whole time. Cool.
Okay.
Number one, Chet, 8. There's gonna be a huge connection there. I know it. I'm writing that down before I get any further because I absolutely don't want to mess with that. Het equals 8th day. Okay. Because we talked about the het being potentially the folly of doing Sukkot wrong. However, 8 is also wealth. It's doing things above and beyond the law of nature. So the Sukkot itself is a process of going through a name change and getting an identity shift, like from God, where the bait of the sukkah that you have built becomes the name is changed, just like Jacob to Israel. Sukkot is the process of doing what it takes to turn your home into one that is Shabbat, that is eternal Shabbat. It is the ascended function of what the Het was set apart to do, was anointed to become at its highest level. The the wow, that's heavy. So
Did you just say what the heck?
no, I didn't. But I'm gonna say that I did. I'll take credit for that. So uh, another thing, you were describing the lula, and you don't want to be too you don't want to be too shallow and spread yourself thin on a horizontal level, and you don't want to be too vertical or proud and have fruit that no one can get to. That is exactly the description of the whole four archetypes model that I've got going that is cross-referenced to the tree of life here in Kabbalah and the birth chart through astrology, which also came from Kabbalah. The vertical axis is the spiritual axis. It is the one of substance. Upward is the sovereign, but if people only have sovereign energy and they're not well-rounded, they are proud. Downward, having deep roots, is the magician or the priest. It's the solid root system. The vertical together is considered the masculine axis. That is it is giving. It is always fruitful. It can't do anything but be fruitful. But sometimes that fruit is bitter. The horizontal axis is represented not by down into the earth or up into the sky, but everything that lives on the surface of the planet. On a birth chart, it's represented by the surface, the horizon. That's why we call it a horizontal line, horizontal line. So a the warrior lives on the left hand because of the left pillar, and the lover lives on the right hand because of the right pillar. The lover wants to give, but if it's not well rounded, if it is not vertical enough, it can only consume. It doesn't know how to give. And the warrior knows how to work. It knows how to get stuff done. But if you are doing too much work and there's not enough vertical substance, then that is you are fruitless. There's a comment that I had heard on a lecture about this stuff where communism and socialism are manifestations of over horizontality, and that there's a disregard for the sacred. There is a disregard for even the manifestation of the sacred through elders, because the elders represent a stature that you have not attained yourself, and a brilliance and a sovereignty that you are not at yet. You won't have anyone to look forward to if you get rid of the value of elders. And if in a communist or socialist system you get rid of everything that you look forward to, everyone's on the same page, and that's not a good thing because
And you know what?
there's no advancing.
And the
Everyone's like an ant.
and the problem with capitalism on the same side is that if you go so left brain that you want to measure everything
Mm,
and you have to calculate everything and everything's about performance, you forget the intrinsic part of the wisdom of people. And if all you do is seek
yes.
knowledge, then you become the negative side of that head.
Yeah. And the so it's ironic that wow. So skyscrapers are a manifestation of capitalism. It is a phallic expression of density. When you want to capitalize on all the space, all the area, surface area that you've got within a, whatever property, you buy this property and then you build up so that you don't have to attain any more property. You can just make the best of what you've got and you keep building up and up and up and up. That is it's not volume. Volume is horizontal, but density is vertical because you can keep packing this more and more and more into that same space. So the for people who are trying to be capitalist but falling short on the end where they're trying to also make it devoid of spirit, they ironically they're trying to make a skyscraper with pencils. It's not going to stand because they don't have any substance. I mean, I know the substance is the vertical, but they're trying to build substance without doing any of the work. It has to be wide enough that there's a base enough to stand on. And even in strategy games, like there's a strategy game I used to love to play called Stellaris, and it's this empire game where you're out in space and you've got this space empire. You want to spread your influence to other solar systems, other star systems, and take control of the planets that have a good atmosphere and whatever, and grow your economy by populating other planets and developing your empire. If you spread too fast, this game is intelligent enough and realistic enough that if you spread too fast, you will spread yourself thin. You will spend more resources spreading horizontally that you will have nothing left to bear fruit. And that's like the horizontal, hardworking, fast-growing Lula. Versus if you do your best to develop only your economy with on your planet, and then you don't spread out when it's time to spread out, you are going to outgrow yourself and you won't have the resources, ironically, to keep up with your work here either. And you need to do the best of both. That's all for the point of that, to be inspired by that model, is you don't ever want to be so hardworking that you cease to bear fruit. You don't ever want to be so busy that you're not productive. But you don't also want to be only so Nazi about what is productive that you refuse to lower yourself and put your face in the dirt where you belong to actually get the work done because it's lower than you. And that's advice I've had to take for myself. You and I have had calls about that. But
That's
the fruitfulness truly is in both. You don't ever want to spread yourself thin horizontally, and you don't ever want to extend yourself vertically.
right, right.
Now, I was going to say, bringing that to
To
what you
practicality,
had
right?
mentioned.
To which is how should people celebrate the transition from 7th day to 8th day?
Yes, yes, I was going to. All right. So, and that you are having me bring that up because that was the advice
Yes,
that we had talked about. Gotcha.
yes.
Cool. So, um, the point of a new year, we even call it New Year's resolution, and we forget, or we never learn the function and the definition of the word resolve.
That's right.
And resolve is a discipline. Resolve is, if you've ever experienced, I am never going to talk to that person again. I am never going to do that again. That is unacceptable. That is the feeling, the emotion of resolve attached to anger due to the circumstances. But resolve is what actually keeps you stuck to what you said you would do. You can experience experience resolve without anger. It is cooler. It doesn't have to be hot-headed. And resolve is what happens when you have beautiful clarity about what you need to do. The the work that goes on overnight between the seventh and the eighth day is projecting into the future what you imagine yourself to be at the end of your life, or if you're more like me and you have no idea what that might be, just 10 years. Just look 10 years into the future, write out everything that you want to do. Like I hate social networking. And I hate, like, there was a time where I hated creating content for social media. So the first thing I'm getting down on that paper is, man, I love doing this. I am addicted to this. I'm obsessed with it every single day. I don't want to stop. And writing down that I'm an absolute master of everything that I currently hate. That's where I start.
That's beautiful.
And then from there, because we're not just designing it from our imagination, we are receiving a signal of what we're actually supposed to become. You cannot hate something if you don't struggle with it. And if you want to become a master of something that of anything, you cannot have authority over something that you haven't struggled with and developed in yourself. So the things that you think you hate the most right now are the very things that you are destined to have absolute dominion over. Those are the things that you need to put on that list, that you need to design overnight and create and mold your mastery around. Mold your mastery. And then that could be a cool tagline.
No kidding.
So
All
the
your mastery
molding
of
your
the
mastery,
concept.
just that design itself is what you're going to be doing over this night. And if there's a certain level of humility, which actually this feeds into the next part, where you write everything down. You're going to take just a few hours. You're going to be staying up all night doing this work, right? So just for a few hours, you just write down everything that matters the most to you. Burn it. Start over. What of those things matter the most to you? And then bring it, like, distill everything down that you just wrote. It's not about remembering. It's about, okay, I know I just said this. Do I really need that? Is that actually a priority? Do I actually want that in my life? Pare it down. Cut the fat.
Yeah.
Connect it with your life. Make a tether between what you imagine and where your life truly actually is. Because if the axis between those two is not truthful, because you're not being truthful about where you actually are right now, your future doesn't exist because you haven't connected it yet.
You're,
Then,
man, I'm telling you, it's so powerful what you're saying because what you told me, right? It was like, we were having a conversation about
yeah, that
it
was just
as,
gonna say that's the last part. That's the final ingredient that I know you don't have an issue with. But that would be the final ingredient is then once you've got that axis in place and you've got that North Star and the whole path paved, wipe everything out of your life that doesn't matter the most.
difficult to do, very difficult to do,
Yeah,
you
there's a
know?
lot of pride involved. There's so much investment and so much identification into this that it hurts and it makes you want to break down and cry because of all this work you've invested into doing a specific thing. And once you have it set, you're like, okay, God, my life is yours, and I'm going to prove it because my life is nothing.
Now watch this, because what you're saying is so freaking deep. I'm going to read to you what these components of the lulav and we talked about them,
Mhm.
but then you have to go, why do we take the eighth day and we beat them into the ground? Okay. So here are some of the tips arranging the lulav. The palm frond should be at least 16 inches long, and the myrtle and the willow branches should be at least 12 inches, right? 16, 8 times 8, or 8 plus 8, 12 for the 12 months of the year, and the 12 tribes of Israel, okay? Then the palm frond should be, it's called frond, Frond, should be at least 4 inches longer for the four directions of the earth, then the myrtle and the willow branches. The etrog should be at least as large as a chicken's egg, so not something really minuscule, but something that actually causes your hand to stay open to receive, not closed. Okay. Um, the myrtle should be placed on the right side. Why? Think about this, about the tree of life. Please show the tree of life one more time.
Yeah.
So the etrog should be at least, okay, the myrtle should be placed on the right side of the palm branch and the willow on the left side. Okay, left side is the receiving female side, right side is the giving male side, and the middle is the fruit and the offspring and the abundance of the two together. Okay, so now you think about this. You're taking just the lulav itself, and you're making sure that the myrtle is on the right side of the palm, and that you're making sure that the willow is on the left side of the palm, and the spine of the palm should face the holder in the center, building this tree of
Mm.
life.
Mhm.
The lulav is held on your right hand, which is what you give with, and the etrog on the left side, which is what you receive with. The two should touch each other, and then you take them. Okay, you can put it down. You take them and you shake it in the 6 directions, not 7 directions: up, down, left,
Mm.
right, center. Okay,
Mhm. Forward,
six
backward.
directions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the other way. And you do this in four
Yeah.
direct,
Six.
right, this way, so that you're doing it in the four directions in the lul
Mhm.
in the um temporary dwelling, the sukkah, for 7 days, and on the eighth day you take it and you put the etrog to the side and you beat it on the ground, because now you are, that's why I said you're destroying yourself, you're making yourself again, you're taking all that pride, all the work, which is what he's telling you, right? Write it up, throw it
Mhm.
away, burn it, write it up again. Make sure that you give
Yeah.
all your investment into it, and so that you are taking all the four possibilities, and then you're saying, make me new, I am brand new, and from here on out. And that's why you receive Torah and you become Torah on this moment. So you take the very essence of who you are, the very future of who you
Yeah.
are, and the very presence and present that you think you are. And you go, I am none of those things, and I'm going to put
Yep.
it all together at one point right here, and I have no idea what I'm doing, and I need God's guidance.
Yep. Less of me and more of you.
Right? Back like on the mountain. I can't
Hmm.
take too much more than 2 steps. No,
Yeah.
we're gonna walk
Yep.
this out all the way through into eternity, the eighth day.
There's a technique that Stephen King does called killing your darlings. He writes a whole book, he writes a whole character, he writes a whole just he writes and writes and writes and writes and writes and writes. And then he throws it all away and he starts over. And he said, if I didn't have the patience to listen to all of that again, and I just wanted to get the most critical stuff out, what would I say first? Where do I start? What matters the most? Like you write your future self out, you write your life, you write everything that matters the most, and then you throw it away or you burn it or you get rid of it however you want, irreversibly, so that you can't look back on it. And you do it again however many times it takes to lose the patience with yourself about describing all the details so that you describe only what matters the most and then you surrender the rest.
Look, this particular presentation is something that if you're listening to it, share it with people. It's not about spirituality, it's not about anything else, but about really truly getting into yourself. If you just take the last piece of this practice that we just gave you, you could do it at any time throughout the year. Whenever you're listening to this will completely change your life. I specifically do this with professionals to help them understand how they can maximize, truly level up their life to the highest level. Just that principle alone. Destroy yourself completely. Remake it without any judgment. Stop. It's difficult to do, and this is a challenge for myself to do it every year, to do it all the time. The reason why we want to talk about these 7 feasts is because I want you to know that they are all an introspective process, and we didn't even cover Shabbat because that in its own, and that is the eighth of all the 7 feasts. The eighth one is how and what and where is Shabbat, and that is the practice of eternity consistently every day of the week. So we are done for today, for now. And it's again one of these things that we could just continue on to talk forever. And by the way, we
Each
started an hour before we even started recording.
each of these, man, they're every subsequent episode is my favorite.
Right?
And if anyone asks, what's your favorite episode? I'd be like, stop asking me impossible questions. The last one.
Don't know
I'm gonna
yet.
always say the last one. Yeah, the most recent one.
Yeah, the most recent, 100%. This is definitely like the best. We'll see what happens next
Hmm.
week, but this one was freaking awesome, and I love
Hmm.
the input that you brought. Holy smokes, man. I'm just jacked up. I don't want to stop, but
Yeah.
got other things to do, but
Yeah.
this is
And we
beautiful.
started the day like, oh, let me make my coffee.
We
So
sure did. We were grinding.
as soon as we finish recording this, send it over to me and I'll get it posted. For those of you listening, we've already got the next few episodes scripted, or not just scripted, but recorded and actually scheduled to post.
Yes.
But because of the wrapping up of Sukkot, we figured we would just impulsively record this episode today and get it posted because we love you guys.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And this is gonna go on YouTube for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exciting.
All right.
See you
Take
guys.
care, people.